In episode 2, the questioning of Rose goes on, and they get nowhere. And what it boils down to is she doesn't want to give any information, but the information she does give isn't sufficient enough for Hawkins. He thinks that she knows more, and in reality, she doesn't know all that much. After a bit, Rose gets so frustrated that she gets up and storms out. Both Hawkins and Diane are in agreement that, yeah, she definitely knows something, and Diane asks Peter if he can just try to get something out of her. Kind of buddy up to her, build that trust factor, and extract whatever information that she has so that they can find out who killed her aunt and uncle. In the meantime, they're going to put Rose up in a hotel. A really nice hotel, but one that she can't leave. It should be safe, though. They have Secret Service outside, downstairs, making sure that no one shady gets in or out. But the frustration that she can't leave and her whole life has been turned upside down is really getting to Rose. And all she's caring about at the moment is just staying alive. Peter urges her to go and tell his bosses what she knows, but she's not going to do it because she believes that what her aunt said is true. There is somebody in the White House who's a mole. And if she can positively ID an assassin, then that's not going to be good for her. She's not going to be breathing too much longer. Peter turns around to leave, and Rose asks him, "Where are you going?" Peter explains that he has to go to work, and Rose doesn't want Peter to leave. While she doesn't 100% trust him, she trusts him more than anyone she's met, and now he's bouncing out, and she has no idea whether they're going to see each other again. And Peter admits he doesn't know whether they're going to see each other again, but he's got orders, and she is protected downstairs. He tries to put her mind at ease. It doesn't really work. Peter then leaves the hotel and he heads back to the White House. He needs to attend a briefing with Hawkins, Diane, and 2 other higher-ups from the president's office because the president wants to know what's the latest. The latest that Hawkins has is the fact that the Campbells did work for them at one point. The fact that they worked acquisitions wasn't a total lie. They would recruit foreign assets domestically, but they retired a few years ago. And Hawkins says that if their niece was calling night action, then they were doing something off the books. Hawkins gets his back up against the wall when they simply ask him if the Campbells had made any enemies when they were overseas, and he confidently says no. When they follow up and ask how he knows this, he just says, "That's not how it works." At the moment, it's not the best look that all Hawkins has is basically what's in the Campbells' file, and a few hunches. He wants to go and take another crack at Rose, but Pete steps in and says, "Don't you think she's been traumatized enough?" And Hawkins yells at him that he's lucky to be in this meeting. Diane is convinced that Hawkins knows something that he's not sharing, but he says, "No, that's it. That's all I know so far." When everybody leaves the room, it's just Diane and Peter, and she tells Peter that she wants him to double-check Hawkins' work. She's going to get Peter the case files of the Campbells, and he's going to look it over while he sits in that windowless room. Before he can dive into the Campbells' file, he gets a little bit of a break. He sent a screenshot of that ring to someone in the FBI, and they've been able to positively ID it. The symbol on the ring looks really close to the family crest from the royal family of Yugoslavia. It's not much, but it's more than Peter had at the moment. He then has to head into that windowless room and start combing over the entire Campbell case file, which is a lot. But the person that was wearing that ring, the assassin, well, he and his girlfriend are heading to D.C. They have to finish that job just like their handler told them. When they get to their own motel, the girlfriend really wants to know what's in that duffel bag. I mean, curiosity is just eating at her. And the male assassin, he just doesn't care. He's found in his profession that it's better to just let sleeping dogs lie. The anticipation never lives up to what is actually in the bag. For his girlfriend, it's the opposite. She can't take it anymore. She opens the duffel bag and she's surprised to find a nanny cam. Neither of them know what that means. She wants to hack into it, find out what would be on that cam, but her boyfriend puts a stop to that. He then gets a phone call from his handler. There's a man on the phone, and then there's another man in the same room with a suit on, and this one looks like a DC type. They give a call to the assassin because they've gotten word on where Rose is. They're going to send him over the information, and they urge him to finish the job this time. The assassin, though, doesn't recognize the suit's voice, and he asks his handler, "Who's the other guy on the phone?" His handler doesn't give up a name. He just says it's somebody with a vested interest on making sure that you finish what you started. Once they get off the phone, this suit asks the handler how trustworthy these two assassins are. And the handler says, well, in 8 years that I've been using them, I've never gotten one complaint. But the fact that Rose is out there seems to be really, really concerning to this DC suit. But the target, Rose, well, she's in that hotel, but she can't sleep. She calls the one person that she feels like at the moment she can trust, and it's Peter. She memorized the night action phone number from seeing it one time, which blows Peter away. He can't believe that she's got a photographic memory like that. But they start talking just kind of about life, about how he got into this situation, being an agent in a windowless room, if it's what he always dreamed of. The quick answer to that is no. He wanted to be the NBA. They get into her career, how she started off in Silicon Valley, how she had this tech startup, and how she trusted the wrong person. Everything was going well for her until somebody named Adam changed the code, which allowed the malware to sneak in and basically ruin her career. She thought her life was over until this whole mess with her aunt and uncle happened. She confides in Peter that she is so lonely all the time, but now that her aunt and uncle are gone, she's even more lonely, and she doesn't know what she's going to do. She asks him if he'd be willing to have breakfast with her, and he says, yeah, of course. Before that breakfast date, he has to meet with Diane. He's been working all night, and after getting off the phone, he did dive into the Campbell's case file, and he did find something pretty interesting. Hawkins was their contact. He was their handler, and he's never mentioned it once. He's never even acted like he knew them. He acted like he knew of them. That's really the only thing he's been able to find, though. He has no idea who killed them. But he has to run because he has to get over to the hotel to meet up with Rose. When he gets there, though, he gets pretty concerned because the Secret Service are gone. And then the lights in the hotel go out. He rushes up the stairwell to Rose's room, and he's relieved because when he gets there, Rose is still there, but the door was open. The lock was busted, which means somebody's coming for him. He doesn't want to sit back and wait to find out who it is. And while trying to sneak Rose out of the building, they get eyes on the assassin. The same one from the Campbell's home, the same one on the road. They start a little bit of a firefight as Peter and Rose try to get out of there. It gets pretty dicey, but Peter and Rose narrowly get away. There is one issue. Rose at the time was wearing a bathrobe, so they need to sneak into a DC boutique and get her some actual clothing. When they get into the changing room and they have a little bit of time to talk about what just transpired, Rose tells Peter that he needs to call the White House to find out who pulled her Secret Service detail. Peter calls Diane, and Diane puts Peter on speakerphone with the two heads of the Secret Service, a guy named Ben and a guy named Nathan. Peter tells the trio what just happened, and everybody in the room is surprised to hear that the Secret Service detail was pulled. They don't know how it happened or who ended up giving that order. But what they do know is the only people that have the power to authorize that are Diane, the president, Ben, Nathan, someone named Director Willett, and then finally, Deputy Director Jamie Hawkins. It's pretty clear to Peter who is the guilty party here. Nathan steps away to call Hawkins' office, but they tell him they have no idea where Hawkins is. That causes a lot of urgency to find out where Hawkins is and for him to explain himself a little bit. Knowing that they're in danger, Diane asks Peter where he is because she wants to send somebody to pick them up. But Peter's not doing that. He tells Diane that he's not going anywhere or telling her anything until they get this crap under control. And even though Diane gives him an order, he ignores it. Because the original order that she gave him was to keep Rose safe at all costs, so he's going to do that. This whole situation has become way more serious than Rose expected. She knows she needs to find out what her aunt and uncle were into. There's really only one way to do that, and that's to go back to her aunt and uncle's house. So that's where Peter and Rose head. It's in her aunt and uncle's house where Rose finally opens up to Peter. She finally trusts him enough. So she tells him everything that she heard that night from her aunt and uncle about Osprey, what was happening in the White House, and then something about files and an engineer. There's also the matter of her aunt saying it was only 7 days before it goes down again. None of that really makes sense to Peter, so he asks Rose, did they say anything else? And she says, yeah, my uncle said something about a drive in the woods. And Rose thinks that what he meant by it was driving into the woods, but Peter realizes no, he meant a computer drive hidden in the woods. And it turns out Rose knows exactly what that means because her uncle had a cabin in the woods. So if there's a computer drive, she knows where it would be. Maybe that has the answers to their issues. They drive out there, they start looking around, and Peter is able to locate the drive. For a computer wizard like Rose, this shouldn't be an issue, but it is, because the drive is heavily encrypted. The only thing she can do is see the files, but she can't see in them. The one file, though, catches Peter's eye. It's file number 2781. And 2781 was the number of the train car that exploded in the metro station, the one that he thwarted. He doesn't think it's a coincidence. And now he's convinced that Rose's aunt and uncle were investigating it. He needs some help, so he calls the Night Action line and they put him through to Diane Farr. Diane informs him that it was Hawkins who called off her Secret Service detail. There was an order issued from the computer in his office. He wasn't able to confess because Hawkins is dead. He was shot 6 times in the back, just like Rose's aunt and uncle. Diane then asks Peter, "Why are you calling me?" And he says, "We found a hard drive and it's encrypted. And I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the metro bombing." Diane is legitimately worried for the safety of both Rose and Peter. She orders Rose and Peter to come back, and it's something Peter definitely has to think about. But what nobody knows is that before he was killed, Hawkins paid a visit to the assassin's handler. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.